Hey Travis, Nelson Mason here. But I'll be your Racers 360 coach for VIR. So we'll run through this, and yeah, I mean, I read your comments, and we'll kind of work from there. I mean, of course, there's always going to be things that we can do a little bit better every lap. I mean, rarely ever do we, kind of turn that perfect lap. So there's going to be little things like using more track and things like that. But we will talk a little bit on not just to use more track, but how we can do it in a more consistent and safe manner, let's say. So we'll start leading right here into turn one. Um, I think the big thing is we're turning in really late here, which is fine. I mean, the big aspect or the big thing that we're always going to want to aim for is that, this is really our, let's say, our apex right here. So we don't want to be on the power ever before the apex. And that's one rule that we're going to try to stick to throughout the lap. Here, we're quite good. So we do it right here, but we are a very late turn in. Now, I would say we can use more of the road on the exit. So we're going to come in a little bit shallower. And then realistically, from the apex point, that's when we can be on power and use more of the road. That's going to allow us to get to full throttle sooner. Really, the big thing that we want to focus on in every corner is, when we're, let's say, decelerating in and trying to trail brake into the apex, then, our speed trace is kind of going to go like this. We're, at peak speed, and then we're braking into the apex. And then, from the apex right now, we're kind of doing one of these, and then we're accelerating a little bit, and then kind of accelerating up. And how we want it to be is a little bit, we want to stop the car like we are, maybe stop the car a little bit more, and then accelerate out. And it's just going to make it more of a V, kind of in and out. So our throttle application is going to be more like this to full throttle, rather than right now we're kind of, just to draw it, we're kind of, doing one of these, and it's just kind of killing our exit. So we want to stop the car a bit more and then accelerate out. So as we roll through here, we're really, really late apexing, which is fine. I mean, I would come in a little bit earlier just to kind of carry my speed across the apex a little bit more. I'd come in a little bit earlier and just try to use a little bit more road, but I think the late apex is completely fine. Like, I've got no real problem with it. But then if you watch our throttle trace, watch how long, like from the apex, we've left the apex. I'm just going to cut back for a second. So we're on power here. We just have to look at any time we're getting on power, where is the car headed? So right now, the car is still kind of headed a little bit into the bush, which is fine. We kind of want to have it just pointed down the road a little bit more before we actually get to our initial throttle. The point where we can start opening up the steering, because as we watch our steering angle is still increasing, right? Still increasing, yet we're getting to more power, more throttle. So we're lifting the nose of the car. We're taking the weight away from the front tires, which is in turn taking the grip away from the front tires. And we're asking them to do more. We're asking them to rotate the car more. So that's where it's a little bit backwards, and we don't want to do that. What we really want to do is, be off the throttle, and for sure, and maybe just even a hair of brake, but preferably no pedals when we get to fully max steering lock or max steering load, let's say. And then the moment that rotates the car and we start opening up our hands or opening up the steering, that's when we get back into the power. We don't want to get back into the power until we start opening up our hands. So that's really going to be the big kicker, because if we watch how long before we, now here's full throttle. So realistically, if I back this up, when we enter this corner, I mean, we can't even see where we're going to get on full throttle. We know that realistically, we're getting on power right here. But from there, we're realistically not getting to full throttle. From this point, we're not getting to full throttle till about over here somewhere. Okay, so that's really a long distance, and that's what we want to try to avoid. If we're running a little bit more of a natural line, letting the car just out a little bit more, it's going to allow us to get to full throttle. And actually, not only are we going to get to full throttle fine, but we're going to then be able to bring the car back to the right side of the track for the left-hander that's coming up. So I would just, use a little bit more road. We don't have to run all the way out to the outside of the track, and we don't have to carry more speed, but we're going to get a better exit. Right now, when our exit speed trace is kind of like this, and we're just going to be getting to full throttle straight away and just cutting that down. All right, so that'll save us a bunch of time, and that approach is going to help us be way more consistent through the corner as well. So always wait. We want to be looking ahead, but we always want to be waiting until, we got the car rotated. That's when we can get back on the power. Being impatient on the throttle is the number one killer of the time. Now here we get back to the right side. What I find a lot of people do, like let's just watch the steering angle here for a second. So we're at 20 degrees. We're now increasing the steering angle, increasing the steering angle, increasing the steering angle. Then we're kind of down a little bit, then increasing it again, then down a little bit, then increasing it again, but now we're straight lining it. Really what I would like to see is if we just keep the car a little bit more to the right side, wait a touch. We can rotate the car in here well without having to really give up that much time. But I want to have it so that the car angle is rotated enough that we're pointed, in this direction. We want to be pointed straight towards our next turn. I don't like kind of cutting, I would say sort of half-assing it through here, and then we're out of position and we've got the car on the wrong trajectory coming into the next corner. I want to, this corner, realistically, we have to think, this corner here doesn't really matter. It's just in the way of our braking point for the next corner. So let's set up for the braking point as best as we can. So when we come through here, we can realistically be a little bit more aggressive with getting the car to kind of come like this. And instead of coming across this way, we've got the car like this. And even if we're not all the way to the outside of the track, which I wish that we were, but the car can only do so much. But right now and everybody kind of takes this line. So it's not like this is a line I'm surprised you're taking. Everybody takes the same line. It's all the lazy approach. And then we brake like this, and then we've got to stop kind of the car here. Then we got to rotate it here. Then we got to get it over to the apex. Then from the apex, we got to get it to the exit. And it's just, it's, it really doesn't make sense to do it that way. And when we think about it, like this is kind of what we're doing. We're here. We get the car rotated. Okay, there we rotate, and then we're to the apex, and then we're to the exit. It's just too many steps. And if we really just had the car rotated just a little bit more outside, and we even, we're braking in a straight line like this, we would still have a better aspect through the left-hander. Now, I don't think we'd be that narrow. I think I'm exaggerating how narrow we are. But I think we'd find just it's a little bit easier. Like we'd probably be like this, let's say, straight here, and then kind of turning in from there. But it's just going to open up that corner a little bit for us because we're going to have the car on a better trajectory. If I draw this from kind of the outside, the corner is like this and like this. And this is kind of whatever, like this. So right now we're doing this. We're kind of coming through here and we're breaking kind of like, okay, well, this is an exaggeration, obviously, but, and I can't really draw, so let me try this again. So this is what we're having to do. So we have to kind of stop the car here and then get it rotated, and here is our, whatever, here's our apex. Now, what I would like to see is just trying to hold it a little bit more, and then kind of coming through like this and breaking in a little bit more of a straight line. But like, we're still breaking in a straight line, but just trying to get the car rotated to this point. Whereas then this just kind of opens up our apex a little bit more. So we can just kind of have a better entry and a better approach, and just open up the apex that little bit more. I'm going to see if I can show you a lap. I mean, I've got basically an identical corner in Europe. Maybe I can show you how I've done it. Okay, so here we're going to come up to a pretty similar corner. It's obviously different, whatever. It's a different track and different car and everything. But I'm just going to show you the line that looks a little bit odd, but how it sets up the corner so much better. Obviously, this car has downforce and the rest of it, and I understand that the Corvette is sliding quite a bit. But you know, the line approach is still kind of what we're trying to achieve. Maybe not as drastic as this, but to the same extent. You can see what I'm talking about. So here we are on the outside of the circuit. The corner goes left, and then there's the braking zone, and then everything else. So as we cut across here, we're just going to leave some space down the inside, try to get the car rotated in the right direction before the corner, and then carry it into the braking zone. So as we play it kind of through, and we can just see how much more open the corner is when we have the car in the trajectory that we want. So what I was saying was, just to go forward here, what I was saying was, you know, everybody pretty much takes this line and breaks in a straight line like this, and then has to turn the car and rotate everything. Now, the way that we do it, where we open everything up, I mean, when we look at it, this apex is much more open now than if we were coming on this trajectory in here and having to do this, right? So it's just opening everything up to us. And sorry about that, I was sharing the wrong screen, so we'll pop back to the to your lap. But you see how we're kind of like cordoned off now. And then the one thing I really want to focus on is we're on the power way, way too soon. Like, I don't want to be on the power until this apex here. So see where we're already on power, and I don't want to be on the power until we're kind of crossing this imaginary line here, right? So we have the car still pointed off into the trees, but we're on the power. So we're basically driving the car towards the trees. And then really from there, I mean, we just need to be using, if we're looking ahead, if we're really setting up the corner a little bit better, let's say having the car traveling in this direction a little bit more, opening up this left-hander, it's going to be much easier, and we can really look ahead. I mean, from our turn-in point, wherever it be, somewhere around here, like, we should already be picking up our apex point and our exit point. And we should have all of those kind of, we should already be scribing the line and be ahead of the car, looking ahead and scribing our line, connecting all those points together. So this way it won't be a surprise when we come through the corner. Right now it kind of looks like, you know, oh, okay, here's the corner. I got to get to the apex. I got to get to the apex. I'm going to drive it over to the apex using the throttle and being on it a little bit earlier. And then once we come around here, we're like, oh, shoot, well, okay, well, I got to the apex. Now where's the exit? The exit is over here. Okay. So we want to be looking ahead a bit more. And that's really going to allow us to scribe that line from the apex out to the exit, being much more consistent, using the road much more consistently, and not being behind the car, not reacting to what the car is doing, but predicting what the car is going to be doing. We're okay in here. And then use the road from here. Here we need to be, again, looking ahead. We need to say, okay, here's our exit point. From here, we can basically get on the power and set this up and scribe our line right through. But instead, we kind of drive point to point. We're like, okay, we got to make that apex. And then, oh, okay, we got to drive, you know, we got to drive over to here. And we're not realistically ahead of the car. It should be much smoother for us to kind of just come out, you know, use the road along here and then kind of mirror the track and be focused on our apex over here. We shouldn't be focused on, okay, I got to get to this point, then I got to get to this point, and then I got to go from there. We want to be kind of mirroring the track along here and just opening up our entry to here. So all of this is just time that we're left on the table because we're realistically having to make decisions off of, you know, what we're seeing the car do versus making the decisions to make the car do what we want it to do. So we're just a step or two behind the car, and we need to make that step or two ahead of the car. So we need to really be looking down the road, scribing our line through kind of all the points that we're connecting. Like, and again, here we're kind of, you know, we're maybe giving up a little bit in the start of the S's, just because we're not confident of where we're going to end up. So if we're looking ahead and we kind of see, all right, this is our line, we're going to come through here, we're going to go boop, 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 and then all the way through. So we want to be kind of ahead. We want to, from this apex, we should already have this apex picked up and where we're going to end up for the next one after that. Okay, so we need to just kind of be those steps ahead. Okay, so coming into these part of the S's, I mean, we're on the right side of the track. Now what happens is we just kind of drive over to the left side, and then we go through all the way up and around. You know, we really want to set this up a bit more where we're coming from the right side of the track and holding to the left side so that this right-hander and left and right is all a little bit easier. We want to minimize that. So instead of kind of driving to here and then having to turn, we want to be coming really from out here and just making it easier. So the entry really isn't a corner. So we want to remove this from being a corner. And if we just change the trajectory in our car without really having to do anything, we'll be carrying way more speed, but we'll be able to stay to the left side much better. And that'll help us prepare for the right side. And then again, we really just want to make sure that we're waiting on throttle. But for sure, we do want to, you know, I think we did pretty good through the second part of the S, let's say. We do want to try to get back to the right side of the track if it's safe to do so, for sure. But, and then from there, I mean, we just want to make sure that we're really being patient on throttle. Let's get the car rotated and pointed down the track before we start getting to the power. And then looking down the road, looking ahead and looking down the road. So saying like already here, we're we're looking for our braking point, our turn-in point, our apex point, and our exit point. So, as we're coming up to our braking point, that should then become like a peripheral vision sort of thing. So as we're coming up to our braking point, our focus is already on our turn-in point. And as we're, let's say, about here, coming up to the turn-in point, our focus is on our apex. And then as we're basically at our turn-in point, our focus is then shifting from our apex over to our exit. So we're ahead of the car and able to visually scribe that line so that we're steering to where we want to be rather than steering at based on what the car is doing at the moment. So that's really going to smooth out our steering inputs. It's going to open up our hands a lot more because we're going to be guiding the car to where we want to go. So we're looking down the road rather than right now, we're kind of looking, oh, I got to get to there, but the car is sliding, but I got to get to there. And that's where we're going to be putting in a lot of steering inputs that are upsetting the car. So here the goal is, we kind of want to just get the car set up. And we really want to set up because this one here is the most important corner on the track by all accounts. So we want to get the car set up, get the car to the left side of the track, smoothly, and have the car kind of set up here. And then this way, we can still trail brake in, trail brake in, trail brake in, but we're going to get the car rotated and we're probably going to get back to gas about here. So it's going to be a little bit early, but we want to get back to gas early and get to full throttle early as soon as possible because it's all about how quickly we can get onto the straight. So if we look here, we're on the power and then we're waiting, but we have to fight it because we're nowhere close to the line really coming out. And this is for sure the most important corner on the track. So we really should be trail braking in, having the car smooth and settled so that we can get the car rotated and pointed down the road. From here, we're going to have most of the rotation done. And from there, we're going to get on the power and away we go. And we want to point the car again down the road. So we want to be way ahead of the car. If we look, we're at 140 degrees of steering angle here. But, if we're looking at it, well, this is the line that we want. And that's using all the road, getting the best exit. But this is the line that we're steering for. So it doesn't make sense, right? So we want to be steering for where we want the car to go rather than steering based on what we think the car is doing right now. So here we go. And now we straighten the car. But really, again, like it's about using the road, but why are we using the road? So we should be running out here, getting a very, very nice exit, and away we go. It should be easy. It should be consistent. And it's just going to give us a much, much better exit, which is going to be worth time the whole way down the straight. We're losing a bunch of time onto the straight. And that's where a lot of the time that's being left on the table is. It's just about smoothing our lines out. We're going to find that we can carry so much more speed. And then the biggest thing, again, is really just, if we tell ourselves we're not allowed to get on power before the apex, if you make that your rule the next time you're on track, you're going to find a major, major difference in how the car handles and how the car performs and just how the stopwatch treats it. We come into the end of the straight. Again, we're fading over a little bit early. I want to delay this fade. I want to come in and still have the car settled, but I want to be in the most preparation possible for this right-hander. Okay. So I really want to prepare for that as best as possible and maximize our speed at the end of the straight because it's the straight that we care the most about. So as we come in here a little bit shallow, and then we have to turn the car, and then we have to increase the brake again. So we had to go down on the brake to get the car to turn, then we have to increase the brake again to stop the car some more. If we just come in with that smoother line I was just talking about, come in with a little bit nicer trajectory and it easier on the car, then we're going to be able to, go from max brake and then completely bleed out of the brake in a very consistent manner as we come into the apex. And, you know, that's going to keep the nose pinned. That's going to help the car rotate, and that's going to get us through the corner as quick as possible. And then again, make sure that we're not on power before the apex. And then here, the second most important corner on the track. See, we're on power, but we're not. We're on power, but we're not. By this point, we should be well into full throttle. So how do we do that? How do we manage that? Again, it's all about just looking ahead. We're going to hit our apex. We have our exit over here. We can scribe a beautiful line right through here, and away we go. So from this point, we want to be on power, and basically we want to be at full throttle by this point. Instead, we're getting on power a bit too soon. That's causing us to kind of understeer and not have the chassis settled. And then we're kind of just waiting, and we're not on power way over to over here. So we're realistically a corner behind where we need to be at full throttle. So again, you know, if we watch, look where we're on power here and look where the car is driving to. The car is driving in this direction right here, and we want to be traveling in this direction. So we almost have the car 90 degrees to the direction we want to be going. And yet we're driving it that way. So we want to just wait, just be patient. We don't want to be on power really until this apex. Okay. So that's really the big thing, I would say. And then really that's where we just got to work. All right. So, you know, it's just a few fundamental changes that will make a massive difference to the stopwatch. So, you know, it'll really allow us to open it, to smooth out our hands. And you're going to find that the car just handles so much better, and we're able to brake so much later. And it's just so much easier to scribe a consistent line when we're just telling ourselves, I'm not allowed to get on the power before the apex. All right. So yeah, please let us know what you think. And if you have any questions or anything like that, but I'll get this right over to you. And again, thanks for using Racers 360. All the best. We hope to see the improvements.